All right, welcome into New York City. It's Friday. Happy Friday. We got a great show planned for you. Todd Fuhrman going to swing by, try to make you a little bit of cashola. We're going to get into a very interesting NBA All-Star draft and preview the weekend in sports, all starting right now. All right, too much good stuff in sports this weekend to focus on one. So we're going to roll through all the things you, the sports fan, might be checking out this week in the next, 24, 48 hours. I'm good at math. Nuggets, let's start with some NBA. Nuggets at Sixers is a really good game. We know Denver's second best team. I buy this in the Western Conference. Not as good when they're on the road. And this is a new-look Sixers team. Tobias Harris is going to be there. The real, pull from the trade. Boban's going to be there. Mike Scott's going to be part of this team. It takes a while for good basketball teams with new pieces, especially good players who want the ball in their hands. That describes Harris to figure it out. So it's going to be interesting to get a first look at this new look Philly team. And Harris himself talked about how he's pumped to be a Sixer.
We got the total package, if you ask me.
J.J. Riddick, too.
Yeah, don't forget, put some respect on his name. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to getting out there and getting out and running and just playing. I think it's going to be really exciting for myself playing and for the fans watching and for everybody around the league taking notice.
All right, I'm looking forward to it, too, but probably for different reasons than Harris. I'm skeptical that it's going to work out, at least as it relates to the price Philly and Elton Brand, their GM, paid to go to the Clippers and get Tobias. But we'll see. Time will tell. Bucks at Mavs. Mavs, another really interesting game, and I love the Nikola Mirotic trade coming from the Pelicans. He's probably not going to debut for Milwaukee. He's still battling that injured calf, and there's no reason to rush him out there. But a Luka Doncic game alone is reason enough to watch. He's on a tear. He's been on a tear all year. 3 triple-doubles in the last 7 games. And he's only got a few weeks left at being a teenager. Keep padding that remarkable run, what he's done under the age of 20. We know Giannis is out there. 2 superstars. Cannot wait for that game. Thunder at Rockets up this weekend. This is an interesting one for all the obvious reasons. I don't get tired ever of Harden playing his former team. The Beard has 30-plus point games in, a streak at 28 now. Only 3 behind Wilt's second best streak of 31 consecutive games of scoring 30 or more. The record's 65, so the Beard has a ways to go. During the streak, by the way, he's averaging almost 42 points per game, basically 8 rebounds and 8 assists per game, 7.9 and 7.7 respectively. And this is a Thunder team that's prideful, especially Russ, past his own triple-double streak himself. He held it with MJ with his 8th straight last night. It's the longest touch streak in 51 years. If you like stats, if you like triple-doubles, if you like guys that used to be teammates and buddies going after each other, that is a game you got to watch. Some college basketball starting to heat up. Number 2 Duke at Virginia. It's a rematch of that game a few weeks ago where Duke handed Virginia their first loss of the season. Zion Williamson has been insane. We all know what he's about. Since these teams met last, he's averaging over that span 23.5 points per game, a little bit better than 9 rebounds, just about 3 assists, 2.6 blocks, and almost 3 steals per game. Yeah, he's pretty good at basketball. In fact, Zion had a career-high 17 rebounds in Duke's dominant win over BC on Tuesday. Remember, Virginia always been a great defensive team. This year, for the most part, they've had a really good offense, too. Interesting test, another test of whether or not they can finally make a deep run in the tournament going up against Duke. Good way to try to get a feel for that. Number 19, Michigan at number 7, or number 19, Wisconsin at number 7, Michigan. It's a rematch for the Wolverines against the team that handed them their first loss a few weeks back. Player of the Year dark horse Ethan Happ has Wisconsin on fire right now on a 6-game win streak, starting with that win over Michigan. I'm from Big Ten country, love Big Ten basketball. These teams do not like each other. A lot on the line. Should be a great game. And look, we've talked a lot of hoops. It's that time of year. But some big UFC fights to look forward to at UFC 234. Middleweight main event. Robert Whittaker is going up against Kelvin Gastelum, friend of the show. We've had Kelvin on the show several times. And last time we had him on, Gastelum walked us through how he's going to win this thing.
I feel like if I can be me and be the pressure fighter that I know I can be, then this fight's not even going to be close. Rob's going to have to deal with me 100% healthy, 100% in shape, And man, I'm just expecting an overwhelming fight for him.
Middleweight co-main is Israel Adesanya, 15-0 against Anderson Silva, the old man. It's kind of a tougher one. I'm going to defer to the experts like Gastelum on who he thinks is going to win that fight.
It's going to be pretty amazing to watch, and you never know. I mean, the old man, Anderson, can pull something off. I mean, he's a legend for a reason, and I think he can pull something off.
All right, Kelvin, you sold me. I put money on Anderson Silva, too. Let's do it. Give me the upset. Another NBA game. Lakers at Sixers. It's Sixers all the time, but they're interesting. And the Tobias Harris thing is fascinating. LeBron James, coming off a big win, travels to a city that was heavily rumored as a landing spot for him last offseason. Can you imagine if LeBron were in Philly right now? Coming off a last-second win over the Celtics last night. Thank you, Rajon Rondo. That tumultuous Lakers team is going to try to rediscover who they are and who they can be after all the will you be, won't you be traded angst. Nobody traded of any significance, not as it relates to the Lakers. They're together. They're with LeBron. They beat the Celtics. They beat the Sixers, too. It tells us a lot about what LeBron and the purple and gold can be going forward, despite some of the frustrations and obviously that locker room. Some great stuff on the line. And, of course, here on your home for streaming sports, CBS Sports HQ, we will have you covered before and after every game with everything you, the sports fan, needs to know about each of those moments in sports over this very exciting weekend. And you probably want some help with gambling, right? Those of you like me, put a little hard-earned money down from time to time. We got you. We got you covered. Todd Fuhrman, my guy, going to give you some insight on that score in just a moment here on Writer's Block. All right, welcome back to New York City. Bill Reiter with you here on the show. Appreciate you hanging out with us in your home for streaming sports. One of my absolute favorite people in the business, because whenever I listen to him, the guy makes me a bunch of money, is Todd Fuhrman, former head bookmaker at Caesars, the guy behind the Bet the Board podcast. This is the ultimate Vegas insider, and like we do every Friday, called up with Todd earlier in the day from my place in Brooklyn, and he gave me some of his insights. I think you're gonna want to get out your wallets and pay attention. Here's Todd Fuhrman trying to break down for us this weekend and a little bit of NFL futures in the world of sports gambling. All right, there he is, Todd Fuhrman. He said first half under. I bet an uncomfortably comfortable amount on the first half under. Todd, that was the biggest bet of my life with zero. There wasn't a single particle of sweat in that first half under in the Super Bowl last week.
You know what's crazy, though, Bill? You replay some of those games, and you look at how New England moved the ball in their opening drive. Until that pass was intercepted, you go, wait a second. Maybe New England's going to do what they've done each of the first two games in the postseason. But once he was picked there, you went, all right, I can put my feet up. I can relax, get the first quarter, the first half. Unfortunately for me, I also like the Rams plus 7.5. And the sequence of events it took late in that game not to win that particular alternative point spread did have me crying in my beer for the couple hours after kickoff, after it ended.
I made one bet for all the money, and it was the first half under, proving yet again, much better to be lucky than to be good. And I'm not usually lucky either. So it was for me, it was the best Super Bowl of all time. Todd, before we get into a little NBA talk, there are some NFL futures that are out for next year. I'm a Bears fan. My kids were born in Kansas City. I used to write about that Chiefs organization. Do you see either of those teams or some other teams I haven't mentioned where maybe there's some value for Super Bowl 54?
Well, depending on where you look, Kansas City listed as the favorite right now at about 7.5 to 1. And it's hard to argue when you have the MVP quarterback coming back for yet another campaign in Patrick Mahomes. And you have to think that that defense can't possibly get worse than what we saw for extended stretches this season. Right behind them, the defending Super Bowl champions, the Patriots, Saints, and Rams, all kind of in that second grouping. The Saints, for me, probably the most intriguing, and I'm a little bit surprised to see their odds that short. I want to see that team get over the hump. I'm not sure that Drew Brees is going to be able to have the velocity in his throws downfield you need with a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. You mentioned the Bears. They come in 15 to 1. Of course, that defense will look a little bit different without defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. We'll see if Mitchell Trubisky can take the next step in his development. But the one thing working against the Bears in 2019 is going to be a schedule that's awfully daunting, knowing they'll have to take on some of the best teams in the league. I think the Bears, unfortunately, Bill, could be a team poised for regression. But if you're looking for a deep sleeper, I'm going to go out west and go a year after everybody talked about them as being a dark horse in the 49ers. I think this is the season Kyle Shanahan can get his boys into the playoffs.
All right, you know what? Bears and regression. As a Bears fan, Todd, that sounds accurate. That sounds like how the universe is supposed to line up. Let's talk a little NBA. I love the Mirotić trade to the Bucks. For me, the jury's still out on what the Sixers have done. Butler a long time ago and Tobias Harris in the last couple of days. How does Vegas view the trade deadline, particularly in the East?
Well, it's crazy. I actually had a chance to speak to Jeff Sherman of the Westgate last night. He said, I have no idea how to power rate the top 4 teams, so I'm going to let the market decide for me. They reopened every team at plus 225 to win the Eastern Conference. That shows the balance of power we have in the East for the first time in recent memory. The folks at betonline.ag, they still believe it's the Celtics and Bucks, a slight cut above when you look at that quartet of teams. For me personally, if I'm going through and I'm trying to power rate it, I actually think the Bucks, because of that Mirotić trade, become the favorite in my opinion. I love what they can do to space the floor. What we've seen from Eric Bledsoe of late is he's been on again, off again, and we know Giannis can take games over. The Celtics, despite that last-second loss to the Lakers, I think they're the most complete team with Brad Stevens, that they're more than capable of doing things when the games matter most in the postseason. I'll put the Raptors at 3. When you have Kawhi Leonard and Kyle Lowry, it's going to give you a chance every night on the floor. I'm not as enamored with the Marc Gasol trade because it's going to cut down on minutes somewhere on the floor. And if Serge Ibaka is the guy that's got to sacrifice some of his playing time, you lose a little bit of toughness. And much like you, I think the jury's still out on the Sixers. This is still a team with an extremely thin bench. Tobias Harris will help them stretch the floor some. But at the same time, I worry about this team's ability to play defense. They're the worst of the quartet in that particular category.
I love the bunching together of those 4 teams in the Eastern Conference. It's been thank you, LeBron James, for going west and at least creating some interesting basketball and some uncertainty out east. After those 4 teams, I presume it's Indy. Does it just become a ridiculous long shot? Does Vegas even give anybody outside of those 4 a chance?
The odds really start to plummet. The Pacers, of course, you lose Victor Oladipo. I don't think they're going to show ill effects throughout the course of the regular season, given how it's almost been the sum of their parts are greater than any individual. But I think when you look at a playoff series and you try and go down that Pacers roster, if you need a bucket late or somebody to create, I just don't see anybody right now. I don't feel comfortable feeding Miles Turner in the post looking to get that pivotal basket from 8 to 10 feet out. You look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, and while the Hornets may win the Southeast, I don't think they're a threat to do anything. It really, for me, hopefully we'll get to see those 4 teams in the conference semifinals with a right to be the sacrificial lambs for Golden State en route to the Warriors' 3rd Larry O'Brien trophy in as many seasons.
All right, for those people that are sort of new to putting some money down, normally when you're talking about a team that's going to win a championship in a sport with multiple teams, maybe if you're really good, you're 2-1, you're 3-1. That you're not seeing that wrong, new gamblers. 1-3, 1-4, depending where you look. The Warriors win an NBA championship, which is about as much of a done deal as you can find. Is there any value, Todd, in betting on someone else, whether it's the Rockets or someone in the Western Conference or one of those 4 Eastern Conference teams? Any value that you see in anyone other than the Warriors winning an NBA championship this year?
Well, I think if you could identify a team or 2 in the East, you're going to have a little bit of opportunity because right now a look-ahead series price for the Western Conference against the Eastern Conference, assuming that it's going to be Golden State against one of those 4 teams that we mentioned, the Warriors would be about a $3.30 favorite, meaning put up $3.30 to make $1 coming back. If you look at the odds for all those teams in the East, a lot of them 8-1 or greater, so you would have the potential to hedge should they get to the finals. Now, of course, you're always going to have to worry about injuries, and we look at Golden State, everybody says, oh, this team is immune to it. The one injury they can't afford to have is to Steph Curry. I think they can win it without Durant. They can win it without Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, DeMarcus Cousins. But if Steph were to go down, then all of a sudden you're talking about the Wild Wild West. You mentioned the Rockets here, and while James Harden is going to be an extremely difficult out, they should get Clint Capella back for games that matter most. And assuming that Father Time doesn't take a bite out of Chris Paul's lower body, I think the Rockets and Warriors in a Western Conference final is extremely intriguing. I'm just not a buyer in the Nuggets. I feel like this team right now is built for the regular season and being able to do damage there. I don't think Golden State goes home at night and has trouble falling asleep thinking about Nikola Jokic, Gary Harris, Paul Millsap, Will Barton and company coming into Oracle and possibly knocking them out of the playoffs.
All right, Fuhrman, last question for you. When Vegas, pull back the curtain for us. When Vegas is trying to evaluate where they see an edge, do they do any investigating research on just the personalities? If Kevin Durant and Draymond Green really hate each other, if Kyrie Irving's flat earth and you guys need to grow up talk is actually impacting locker room dynamics, do those things factor into the arithmetic for Las Vegas and who they buy and who they don't?
It's a great question, and no, odds makers don't try and factor in some of the intangibles into the equation there. Now, you may see some use a slight difference of opinion, and instead of bunching all four of those teams together, maybe some shops will make the Bucks potentially 2-1 if we're using the Eastern Conference as an example, and Philadelphia in that 2.5 to 1 range. But you talk about some of the infighting for the Warriors and the potential that has to derail championship aspirations. That's going to fall on the handicapper, and where you can get a little bit of an edge over the odds maker if you've done your homework or you happen to talk to sources closer to the organization and go, hey, this thing is a powder keg waiting to explode. Odds makers don't want to try and create some of that perceived value, building in some of the things that may not ultimately impact what's going to take place on the floor.
All right, Fuhrman, I'm feeling unusually flush as it relates to my disposable income and some of the things we do with sports in Vegas. So if you have any tips or any thoughts, you know where to hit me. You know where I am.
I'll make sure I can try and hand some things out to you, Bill, but I do have a game tonight, or I should say a player prop that I think offers a little bit of value. I know Milwaukee goes on the road. They're a 7.5, 8-point favorite against the Mavericks. We mentioned Eric Bledsoe earlier. I love what I've seen from him. Chris Middleton won't be available for the Bucks, so I think you could see an uptick in productivity and, more importantly, minutes from Bledsoe. I like his points over tonight at 17.5.
All right, I got money to spend. I'm doing it. Todd Fuhrman, you are the man, buddy. We'll talk to you again. Actually, you and I are both off this show. We're not on the show next week, so I'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
I'm going to be disappointed. I figured you and I could have a long, intense, thorough discussion about the Daytona 500 because I know you're a NASCAR junkie at heart.
All right, Fuhrman is such a good guy. And I'm not just saying this. Trust me, I've got, like we all do, I've had some hot streaks. I've had some real cold streaks. Fuhrman's advice is usually, in the long run, and all of us gamblers know that's the key, right? It's all about the long run, spot on. So I'm absolutely taking his advice and putting some of that. I got a little extra money. Some of you didn't like Super Bowl 53? First half under, all the money. Felt really good about it. I'm going to take Fuhrman's advice and try to build that bankroll a little bit more. We do have something cool for you. Really, I love the All-Star Game live on-air draft between Giannis and LeBron yesterday. There's been some fallout from it. Some of it's funny, some of it's not, at least to Russell Westbrook. We'll get into that here on the program in just a minute. All right, welcome back into New York City. I'm Bill Reiter. This is Reiter's Block, and Russell Westbrook keeps doing Russell Westbrook things. In a win over Memphis last night, he extended his triple-double streak to 8 consecutive games. It's the second longest streak in NBA history, and we're going to go inside the numbers on what Russ is doing, starting with the number 9. Wilt Chamberlain holds the record for the longest triple-double streak at 9 consecutive games. Russ can tie Wilt's mark Saturday at that game in Houston we told you about, and potentially break it at home Monday night if he keeps it going against the Blazers. 21 is next up. Westbrook leads the NBA this season with 21 triple-doubles so far. The next closest player is Nikola Jokic with 10. How about 5? This is the 5th straight season Russ has led the league in triple-doubles. The least amount of triple-doubles he had in any of those years was 11 in 2014-15, and he missed 15 games that season. 21, 11, and 11, as in Westbrook is currently averaging 21 points, 11 assists, and 11 rebounds per game. If those averages hold, Russ will average a triple-double for the 3rd consecutive season. Reminder, only he and the Big O, Oscar Robertson, have averaged a triple-double in a single season. 29 is next up. Over the last 2.5 seasons, Russell Westbrook has made up for over 29% of the league's triple-doubles. He's recorded 88 of them since the 2016-17 season, while the rest of the NBA has accounted for 214 in that stretch. And finally, the number 9, in 9 of the games in which Russ notched a triple-double this season, Paul George scored 35-plus points. When active, Westbrook missed out on a triple-double in just 3 of George's 35-plus point games this year, telling us the obvious: these guys play great together. Speaking of playing great together, that may not transition as much to the NBA All-Star Game, But I love the live draft that they did last night. They allowed Team Giannis and Team LeBron, those two guys, to draft their own teams. And so this is what we've got. Not an Eastern Conference versus Western Conference breakdown, but a schoolyard on the blacktop. I got this guy, I got this guy, I got this guy. And you can see there, pretty interesting teams. Team LeBron, little Ben Simmons on there. We'll get to that in a second. LaMarcus Aldridge, Carl Anthony, Towns, AD, Harden, Kawhi, and Kyrie as the starters. They're so different. I actually like Giannis' team. I think Giannis' team is really interesting. He's got shooters like Curry, Embiid's a stud, Paul George. I think Kemba Walker's wildly underrated, and I respect that he drafted his guy Chris Middleton first outside of the starters. That's what loyalty is. There are also some really cool moments because we've got Russ and Simmons highlighted there because the first ever All-Star Game trade went down. That's right. Westbrook is changing teams, and you saw it right. Westbrook will be playing with Joel Embiid. They're not best friends. And no, you don't have to read too much into it. We're not speculating. This was on purpose. LeBron is trolling these guys, and we know because LeBron told us.
Well, since it's that time of the year, Ernie, and I have a feeling that Giannis would love to see Russ and Embiid be teammates because we know how much they get along. I'm proposing a Russell Westbrook for Ben Simmons trade.
What if you put Dwayne Wade in the trade?
Now it's getting deep.
You know what? I know Ben Simmons is your guy, so I'll do it.
Not everyone's laughing. We'll get to the guy who's not in a second. But Embiid reacted the right way. Embiid is so good on social media, and this GIF is the exact right response by Embiid, basically saying, you gotta be kidding me. What'd you guys do? But that's right, have a little fun with it. Have a sense of humor. Something, as you'll see here, Russell Westbrook doesn't seem to possess when told of the news.
No.
I'm laughing at the comment and the jacket. I can keep it together on one of the two. It's very hard with both. Not all were upset with the draft. Kyrie Irving sounds pretty pumped being on a starting five with LeBron, KD, Kawhi, and Harden.
KD,
You were
Kawhi, and
selected
Harden.
second, right?
Okay. Oh wow.
It's a good one.
Yo, that's a great five. That's a great five. Myself, Bron, KD, Kawhi, and who else did you say? James?
James, yeah. Yeah.
Well.
But really, the night belonged to Giannis in this moment after LeBron James drafted Anthony Davis.
I'm going with Anthony Davis.
You sure you want him to be your teammate?
I'm very sure of that.
Is it that tampering?
No. Shots fired, and you're up.
Tampering rules does not apply on All-Star Weekend.
Giannis for the win. It is tampering. Everyone's laughing but New Orleans. The joke's funny everywhere but the Big Easy. All right, thank you for hanging out here today. Thanks for hanging out here this week on Writer's Block. I'm your host, Bill Reiter. The guys are taking over down in Fort Lauderdale. Get you caught up on what's going on, trending in the world of sports, and of course, Sportsline coming up in 30 minutes. We'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.